And so last Friday, I was playing in a golf tournament, and I was filling in for somebody. Well, because the creator of the team didn't know who his teammates would be, he just threw in random names. And after he found out his teammates, we just took those names. Well, at the end, they do open door prizes, or door prizes. They were actually very closed door prizes. And the rule was you had to be there if your name was called. You couldn't be standing in the gap for one of your teammates. You know what I'm saying? And so they start calling all these door prizes, and pretty much a lot of people were gone. So they just kept calling their names. Well, strangely, every single person that the creator of our team wrote down originally, because those were the names they gave, they won a door prize. But none of us could get the door prize because none of us were that person. So we had to sit there as they were calling out, here's a pack of 140 Pro V1s. Here's 4 rounds to Mark Bostic. Here's 4 rounds to Hawkstone. Here's a Miapa gift basket. And we just had to sit there and say, that's tough because technically that is us.
That is hideous.
But it's not. And
so I'm assuming there was a lot of people there that would have known you. Like they would have known that you're not, Jonathan Hemmingstone.
Yes. Well, I was playing with Harold Theus, and Harold's name was on there, but he had to go. But for instance, Jace Barber's father, I played with him, and his name was not on there, but the person he was replacing won. I personally was David Chauncey, and he won. I think it was a Miapa gift basket. Harold won a 4 rounds to Hawkstone.
That's some serious value. I mean, that's not nothing.
I was very close to say, I am Harold Theus.
I'm here to put out the fire, baby.
Yes. But it was a great tournament. It was fun. But that was a bummer at the end because, oh well. But it was a good tournament. It was at Mark Bostic. It was all around fun. Our last 3 holes our team got a little tired. But other than that, 10 out of 10 experience.
Well, it sounds phenomenal. I'm assuming it was a scramble. Yeah, you probably said that.
Yes.
Scrambles are fun, man, especially, I mean, I don't know if you paid to play in it or, someone sponsored your way into it, but when someone sponsors you to go out and play in a scramble, it is just not a care in the world, at least for me. Like, I want to play well, but I haven't paid $70 to go out and play. Because if I pay $70, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna line up every putt. I'm gonna try, I'm gonna kind of walk through everything. Whereas in a scramble, if someone, pipes a drive down the middle, you come up after him, you're like, I'm swinging for the fences. I'm hitting this thing 350.
That's right.
So
that's a lot like what hole 1 looked like. Is 3 of us, 2 of us hit our balls out of the water. I mean, into the Northwest 34th Street, or Southwest 34th Street. I hit my drive on the left side of the rough, and then Jace's dad hits his. He played old man golf, so he's going straight every time. And then I took a 6-iron and did not hit it right, but it landed 10 feet away from the pin. just based on roll and bounce and a lot of luck. But it's that kind of stuff is you're working as a team, and it's a beautiful thing. Even though you come in second to last, but that it doesn't matter. Again, this group is not a group of golfers. We each had our strengths, and this is going to sound very prideful with what I'm about to say, but one could say I had more strengths than some of the others on my team.
Whoa. Who was the fourth? You had Harold, had Jace's dad.
Ryan Curtis is his name.
Ryan Curtis.
He's a lawyer.
Wow. Well, it's always fun to be the best golfer, in a group of four. I don't think I've ever experienced it, but I imagine it was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was the 8th Judicial Circuit Court golf tournament.
Wow.
I felt very, what's the word? Legal?
Litigious.
Yes, litigious. As we all
Word of the week.
had to tee off in robes.
With a gavel.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. After the 9th hole, they had a putting contest on the warm-up green, and they used gavels as putters, and it was closest to the pin.
Really? How'd you do with it?
I think the putt was 90 feet. Is a 90-foot putt, or 60-foot putt. 60-foot putt, and I got 4 feet 8 inches away. At the time,
90 feet. That's
I think 60 feet. 60 feet. At the time, that was the winner. I had the closest to the pin, but I believe the winning one was 5 inches away.
Oh wow!
Which is
someone
crazy.
Came in and after you snuck it inside.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's tough. I played in the scramble, and I think I talked about it on the podcast, but I played in that scramble for SMH, and they had a similar putting contest, but it was from like 100 feet out. And my boss won it, and I think he got it wasn't a Scotty Cameron, but it was like a new Ping or some sort of putter. And he plays like once a year. I'm like, I'll take that putter off your hands, sir.
True. I wonder if they'd let you exchange it for a lefty.
I was actually just thinking the same thing. I was like, what if I went up there and was like, guys, I hate to break it to you, but I've got the left-handedness. It's a sickness.
I know it. I won a right-handed 58-degree lob wedge, Titleist. It's a good club. For winning long drive at a Milton tournament. FBC Milton, and number one, they didn't believe I could do it. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. Get in the gym.
Right. Get big.
But I'm not right-handed. So Zane Lowe currently has that club, and I believe he's doing great things with it.
Oh, that's great. I would have maybe not pitched a fit, but I would have, been like, what do you want me to do with this?
Come on, guys. Come on.
I guess you could use it if you're in a pickle, like if you're up against a fence on the right side of the fairway or right side of the rough.
Absolutely.
But
I used to carry, during tournaments when I played in high school, I did carry a right-handed club because of that.
Look, you get stuck up tight against a privacy fence. There's not much else you can do.
No. You could always knock on the back door. You mind if I take your fence out real quick?
Right. Just a panel. It'll be really easy.
Well, what are some, if you had to narrow it down to a few highlights of your week, what's on your mind? What did you do?
Well, last Saturday we went to the Strawberry Festival in Plant City. Have you ever heard of this?
I have.
Have you ever been?
I've never been, but I've known many that have.
So I was expecting I don't know, it's in Plant City. Plant City is obviously very agricultural, very rural. I was expecting, you know, I was expecting a lot of strawberry theme, right? It's the Strawberry Festival. I would have thought there was, maybe on one side there's like a field of strawberries. Maybe there's some different exhibits on like the history of, strawberry farming in Florida and stuff like that. And they did have an exhibit with like old tractors and stuff like that, which was cool. But 95% of it was strictly corn dog salesmen. Like the big trucks with the flags. We sell corn dogs, funnel cakes, and whatever else. You know what I mean? And it was just like a giant fairground with just fair food. It was really just a big carnival. So I was a little disappointed because I was hoping it would be maybe a little more educational than it was.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. You were kind of thinking more Strawberry Museum like.
I don't need it to be a museum. There was no strawberry theme whatsoever. Like it was just a fair. I mean, they had pig racing, which was cool. The pigs, they swam in a pool as part of the race. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, there was no strawberry theme throughout. I really thought they were kind of missing the mark a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder, because the name does make you think the festival, the subject of the festival is strawberries. But I wonder if what they were trying to just communicate was we are having a festival in the capital of Strawberry Land.
I think that's what it's turned into.
It is poor. It is dishonest. It's not like these people didn't know what they were doing, They've made families drive hours to go see strawberries and the history of strawberries. And that's what you're greeted with? Corn dogs? Not even strawberry flavored corn dogs? Do they have strawberry jelly for your corn dog to dip in? Maybe a little breakfast dog, sausage corn dog.
They did not. They did. So they have concerts. So like Friday night before we went, they had Reba there, which we couldn't say it too loud around Stetson because he loves Reba. He would have been very upset if we had passed up on a Reba concert. And then I think Lauren Daigle was going to be there that Saturday night that we were there. So it's like, it's like a big fair. And then at night they have concerts and it's kind of cool, but I just wish it was more strawberry themed. There was a donut truck that is local to Lakewood Ranch. I think they're local to Lakewood Ranch. They're always in Lakewood Ranch, but they had two trucks up there and they had a strawberry themed donuts and stuff like that. And we got some of that and it was phenomenal. That was probably the highlight of the day. Was getting that delicious fresh donut, but
isn't that fascinating is that the out of town people brought the strawberry element to the Strawberry Festival. Maybe that's what's missing. Maybe that's just the type of people Plant City makes. We've been doing this every year forever. We don't need to do strawberry themed. We know it's the strawberry capital of the world. We're around strawberries all day. In fact, this is the only day of the year that we can get away from strawberries.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just, in my head, I had this vision of like 1950s. Everyone's walking around like, respectful, and there's somebody, there's a stand where they're selling strawberries. There's a stand where they're selling, strawberry cupcakes or shortbread or something like that. And it was only corn dog salesmen. You can see how
everyone was in suits and women were in dresses and skirts, and you could only see black and white.
Right. Look, I think those were, I won't say better days. There was certainly some drawbacks from the 1950s, I'm sure, but I think it's wild. You just look at how society has devolved over time into now it's only corn dog salesmen and tattooed people walking around with, I don't want to get into it too much, but the women, if they're walking around on a Saturday and it's warm outside, they're not wearing too many clothes. It's like, you got a lot of tattoos and you should probably put some more clothes on. I said that to myself several times.
I think there's an element of that statement that you may need to repent.
I don't care if people have tattoos, but if you're in
good.
public,
that's good to make clear.
Yeah, I don't care if you have tattoos, but I'm just trying to illustrate the sort of folk. My brother's got a lot of tattoos, so he would fit into this crowd. He doesn't like wearing clothes as well. So, but I think especially women, it's like there was some chicks that I was like, you need to put clothes on. I've got a 2-year-old son who's here riding on my shoulders. But yeah, I don't know. It was a fun time. We hung out with some friends, but like I said, not quite what we were expecting.
Certainly. And let's just be clear again. Brett doesn't care if you have tattoos, but his original statement might think that he may care, such as things were better in the 1950s. There weren't any tattoos.
That's not what I said. I was just thinking of a couple of people in particular that I saw where it was like, oh, wow, you've got a lot of tattoos and you're not wearing a lot of clothes. And I'm able to see tattoos in places that I typically probably wouldn't be able to see, was more of my point.
I guess, what do you think the answer is? Because I think they would make the statement, I have the ability to do it. You cannot tell me what to do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but I think there's an element of, this isn't, we can't just walk around in the nude. Like there's obscenity laws and things like that. So there's a line that I think you cross at some point. And yeah, I don't think there was any police that were actually out there enforcing any of our obscenity laws. So it's a little unfortunate. Maybe we need to make a donation to the Plant City Police Department. Increase their funding for public nudity patrol.
Would it have been better if they had strawberry tattoos?
That's a little more wholesome than the tattoos that I saw. So, but
well, I'm sorry, your experience wasn't great.
It's not that it wasn't great. It was just not what I was expecting. I think if I had gone in thinking, oh, this is just strictly going to be a carnival, I probably would have been a little better prepared. But yeah, so that was Saturday. And then on Wednesday, I had to take Stetson to the ENT which is ear, nose, and throat. He gets a lot of ear infections, so he had his ears looked at and stuff like that. But I was in the waiting room, and there is probably 6 or 7 parents of kids ranging from 2 up to probably 10. And me and Stetson are sitting in this waiting room, and he's just sitting on my lap, just watching everybody. They had like a little play area in the waiting room, and probably 75% of the kids were walking around with iPads, just like it's hilarious because they're sitting at a table that has books and games and like the little sliders, the little beads that you slide around this loop-de-doop, and they're on their iPads. And it's really just it's a wild picture because it's like, the things that used to entertain kids that were simple and wholesome, they no longer do the trick. So half of them were watching Minecraft YouTubers, or like Fortnite YouTubers at full volume, and their parents. I'm like, at least get them some freaking headphones or something. I mean, can you spare the rest of us this? But Stetson was great. I mean, I think he was probably the best behaved kid there by far, but he just sat and like watched everybody else play and just hung out like a normal human being, So I don't really know my point of the story. It's just,
I know the point you're saying. I think you were publicly trying to, share how good of a parent you are in the least prideful way possible by sharing about a situation in which children are sick and at a doctor and wanting to say, hi, my kid is better than the rest. Now, I will say, I think iPads for children are the equivalent of children in our day watching SpongeBob SquarePants. I think there's going to be a strong positive correlation to how those people turn out. I think about you, for example, is what do you do? Sorry, I had to do it. But I understand your point, man. So don't think your story doesn't have a point. Everything you say has a point, and it will be inferred unless you clear it up.
I'll say this, and this is not an inference. This is straight facts. Okay.
Put it to him quite frankly.
Quite frankly, and I may go off a little bit. Okay. Quite frankly, if you are in public, if you're at home, but if you're especially in public and you're in a waiting room and you're a parent and you're sitting there scrolling on your phone while your 8-year-old kid walks or like sits down across the room and watches Minecraft YouTube on their iPad until their appointment is ready, it's like, you've got, and this is how I think of it, and I'm not saying this is the wrong or the right way to look at it, but I'm like, you have a limited amount of time to have influence on your children, right? They're watching you every second of the day that you're hanging out with them. They're absorbing everything you do. It's like, I would rather have my kid on my lap pointing at the silly pictures on the wall. Look at that silly turtle. What color is this? Like, instead of just, I could have, I guess, pulled out my phone and played Mickey Mouse for Stetson, but like, how was that edifying for him is my question. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying like oh, I'm the best and I'm never on my phone around my kids, because I am. But at the same time, it's like, it's insane. These people don't even give it a second thought, you know? In the words of Lizzo, truth hurts. That's the Aristocats. They taught us that. And my rant's over, but it's just, people just need to wake up. It's too much. It's just too much. These kids, they're going to wake up one day and they're not going to know how to do anything.
They will know how to build a Minecraft fortress, it sounds like.
Right, right.
Do you think that because when parents don't give their children's phones, or they aren't around phones for their children, do you think that automatically makes them a good parent?
I don't
or
think
vice
so.
versa?
I think I think there's some
that-
kids. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, or vice versa. Do you think when parents are on their phone or pass their device to a child, does that make them a bad parent?
I mean, if you're using it as a pacifier, or as like, oh, they're bouncing off the walls or something, I've just got to give them something to focus on. Then, like, yeah, I mean, it's not the kid's fault. I mean, the parents have conditioned them to always have stimuli. Feed me stimuli or I'll go crazy. But on the other side of the coin, Molly deals with some kids that, maybe aren't in front of devices all day, but they just run around in the woods and there's never any structure at all. You know what I mean? Like, if they're just out there for 8 hours a day, which, I mean, sounds phenomenal, but you also don't know how to, like, listen and follow directions because you're not being influenced by your parents, if that makes sense. So there's two sides of the coin. And I think in the middle is maybe parents that want to intentionally influence their kids' thoughts and actions. And I hope that's where I am. Sometimes I don't fall. Sometimes I fall on both sides of that spectrum, but my goal is to be right there in the sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, here's a question for our married listeners, or listeners who are looking to be married and have children. What do you think the role of marriage plays into solid foundational parenting?
Is this a question you want me to answer?
Yeah, I think your insight, since you are so great, it would be great for our listeners to hear.
So your question was, how does our marriage influence your kids, essentially?
Well, how does your marriage? What is the role of marriage whenever it comes to parenting your children?
I mean, I think at a basic level, I mean, you've got to, agree on some basic boundaries and rules of how you're going to raise your kids. But I think at a deeper level, your kids see how you interact with your spouse every single day. And I talked about this last night with my buddies, but like, your kids, whether it's a boy or a girl, if it's a boy and you see your dad be gentle and caring and sweet and loving to their mom, then they're going to say, hey, look, whenever I grow up, like, that's how you treat your wife, essentially. And then with a girl, the same thing applies. It's like, she's not going to go find some scumbag whenever she grows up, hopefully, because in an ideal world, she's seen her dad be a good husband to her mom, if that makes sense. And it's kind of, I guess, ingrained because you see it every single day. So, but I think I don't know if that's where you were going with that question, but that's my answer to it.
I wasn't going anywhere in particular. I was curious. But it sounds like what you're saying is your marriage sets the example for what relationships should look like for your children in a practical sense.
I'd say that's accurate.
And I think in a lot of America specifically, the children come before the spouse. You know, if you put a hierarchy of importance, the child is more important than the spouse. And I believe that is backwards. And I believe that is where you run into these issues of why do children run around with iPads? And I'm not saying, I don't necessarily believe that a child watching a video on an iPad is inherently wrong, but I do believe if you are, like Brett said, using it as a pacifier, that's beautiful imagery, then we should look to alternative methods. But at the end of the day, the most important relationship in the family would be the marriage over the children. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
But I find that the majority of the Westerners do not prioritize. If you looked at their life, what the evidence of it was, I would say that is not what the evidence would show. We would prioritize baseball games, basketball games, practices. I can't miss a game because it's my child. Can't miss a practice because it's my child. Meanwhile, your spouse is miserable because you can't go on a date with her because y'all are always at a game. We just got to work on that. As an unmarried man myself, that's just...
You're like, I got to work on that, man. I got to treat myself a little more often. Stop worrying about these dang kids.
I just see it. I think your relationship with your children flourishes when your relationship with your spouse flourishes. I think it's all made more healthy, but ultimately because your relationship with God is flourishing.
I'd say that's the truth. That's a baller statement.
Well, that was Wednesday. How is Stetson now?
He's good. I think he is going to have to get tubes. Sadly, that was kind of the prognosis, if you will, coming out of that appointment. So I don't know. We haven't like called to schedule it or anything like that, but I think that's probably what needs to happen. But yeah, hopefully hopefully his hearing will get better after that. And, a lot of people say that their speech picks up and things like that because they're just able to hear better, like inflections in the voice and sounds and stuff like that. So I don't know. We're still mulling it over. So haven't really made a decision on it, but that was their recommendation. But,
are tubes permanent? Or are they temporary?
They are temporary. So I had tubes growing up when I was like 10 months old. And your ear, it just, once it develops, I guess to the point where your ears can drain and you don't get ear infections anymore, it just kind of shoots the tube out of your ear, from my understanding. So I think you got to be careful.
Shoot the tube.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful whenever your kid has tubes, because if they shoot out at a high rate of speed. It's like a little projectile. So, but it's like a year and a half. They said he would have them, and they would probably just fall out whenever he doesn't need them anymore. I was like, wow, that's cool.
So, that's cutting edge technology.
Yeah. I don't know how, she explained it to me in the doctor's appointment. She was like pointing at these pictures on the wall, and just the classic dad in that scenario. She's like, so what antibiotics has he been on? And I was just like,
we don't really believe in antibiotics. We just whole milk and apples. That's the answer.
Raw milk and sugar cubes. Yeah.
And one daily injection of Ozempic.
That's right. What is that, HB1 or something like that? But she helped me out. She started listing off some antibiotics. I was like, that one and that one. She's like, okay, good. I was like, I didn't say this. I was like, she can tell that my wife booked this appointment and was like, hey, can you take Stetson? So I was struggling with some of the questions because I'm just, I don't have the dang medical history. They're the doctors. They got the referral. Shouldn't they have some sort of chart, right, that they communicate amongst themselves? That says, hey, he's had this many ear infections.
Yeah. Why are you expecting his dad to know that,
Right.
I got to watch YouTube at night. I don't give this guy antibiotics.
Right. I'm too busy working on my low stakes poker strategy on YouTube. Okay. I don't have time to concern myself with how many ear infections my kids got. So
SpongeBob. It all goes back to SpongeBob, man.
Oh, and then the last thing I'll bring up, because I know my week's really taking a lot of time here, but last thing I'll bring up was last night. We had a group of guys get together. We read the first 25% of this book called Disciplines of a Godly Man. And that whole section was on relationships. So it talks about relationships with your marriage, as a father, with friends, stuff like that. So it was really good. We all just hung out on Jacob's back porch and we went chapter by chapter, and we had all kind of underlined stuff in the book, and it was good because usually, we'll go over there and smoke cigars and stuff and just, I think it's like the classic guy thing, just not talk about anything, we're talking the whole time, but Molly asked, she's like, oh, what did y'all chat about all night? You were over there for 4 hours. And I'm just like, I couldn't tell you a single thing we talked about. But this was not the case last night. It was really, it was just really good. Just getting the guys together, smoking some stogies, and got a little, Jacob made pig in the blankets. I brought a little bit of that Publix street corn dip. So we had some little hors d'oeuvres, some cigars and LaCroix.
Did y'all get the pigs from the strawberry festival?
We did not. Those were little beef franks, actually, not pork. So, but yeah, it was just great, just getting together with the guys, and it was a totally different vibe than what we usually do. But it was really, I don't know, it feels good. It was good for the soul. So
praise God. What was one of the things you learned that really stuck out to you in last night's conversation about disciplines of a godly man?
Well, I already brought one of them up about how your kids are just absolute sponges. They watch everything you do. And the best example you can set for them is like I said, just being loving to your wife. I'm trying to think here. It really put a big challenge, I think, on us, because I think we all realize that we're not very good at this. About I think there was a quote that said that you should be in your daily prayer time, you should be interceding on behalf of your wife's known struggles and prayer requests and her unknown. So like you need to be so in tune with your wife that you're able to pray for the things that she's talking about that stresses her out. And also pray for the things that like you notice in her that she hasn't even brought up. So that was pretty challenging, because I was like, I get home at the end of the day, I'm tired, she's tired. And it seems like that's a tough thing to do, but there was a lot of challenges. Really every single chapter had some, I think there was obviously some things that we could all work on there. So
That's a good word. And I think that's one of the things you're never going to run out of things to work on. That's the human condition. But by God's grace, we have a pathway to work on it out of love rather than performance. If you're just trying to perform, you're going to lead to a lot of disappointment, to be quite frank. And if you're done with your week, that'll transition me into mine. But I'm
done. I've taken too much time. I apologize.
I'll work backwards then, because we go from performance-based, as what we were discussing, to a marriage that is based out of grace and love for one another, but ultimately that being a reflection of love for Christ. And why is that something that I would talk about? Well, number one, I think marriage is important. It's a very important relationship, and it reflects God's sacrifice through his son, Jesus Christ. And number two, I've been at a marriage conference yesterday, last night, and upcoming this morning. And it's called the Grace Marriage Conference is what it's called. But it's talking very specifically about the performance-based mindset versus the grace-based mindset. This guy used a great example. His wife forgot to pick up the procedure, the medicine. His wife forgot to pick up some prescriptions, not procedures, some prescriptions. And they were important prescriptions. And his wife is more of the loosey-goosey, less structured. He's more structured. Not in a bad way for either of them. That's just their personality types. And he was saying that was a moment when she got scared. I forgot to pick up the prescription. Well, this guy had two options. He could either say, whoa, you are because it forgot to pick up prescription for the child. So he was like, he had two options. He said, whoa, you are a great mother. You're one of the most sacrificial people I've met for your children. You would do anything for your child. Or, hey, this is exactly why we create lists, so you won't forget. And his point was the list answer is not beneficial, because it's not like she doesn't know that, But what she does need to hear is your love for her, the grace you have for her, motivated out of a love for Christ. But if you're not a Christian, you're listening to this, I think that's just good practice in general, is respond out of love and grace and forgiveness rather than solution-based and performance-based responses. I think that's hard for someone like myself, who can see a clear answer. There's an answer to a problem. It's not like these people don't know that there's an answer. It's just sometimes you need to, well, all the time we need to extend grace, whether you're married or not. No matter what situation, it's not life or death. So quit freaking out. That was the yesterday and this morning upcoming. I talked about the golf tournament. That was great. It's been a very relatively normal week. I mean, just going about the day working, enjoying the day. I've been watching. I tried to watch the Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks, and then Kyrie tore his ACL. I do think it is possibly the worst management job in the history of sports these past couple of months. And I'm not even a diehard. I'm not a basketball is my life. Sports are my life. I'm going to talk about it, but this is ridiculous enough that it warrants to be talked about. But if I was in charge of Nico Harrison, I would be asking some questions. That's all I'm saying. Nico Harrison, of course, is the general manager of the Mavericks who is making these decisions. Secondly, went to Run Club with Johnny Holguin on Thursday.
Let's go.
And it was phenomenal. I would really recommend if you're have a run club near you, if you're listening to this, I would go. You don't even have to be good at running because these are ultimately not really run clubs. They're run walk clubs. Jog, do whatever you want to clubs, because it's not about running. It's not about racing. It's about the community aspect. And you meet some cool people. One of those people I met, strangely, was also at pickleball for the first time.
Wow.
And because they knew they had a mutual friend that was at the pickleball. So it wasn't even, it was two different locations at two different times on the same day. Fascinating stuff. That stuck out to me. But my time there with Johnny was absolutely electric. You know, we ran the first mile together, and then we just pushed ourselves on the second mile, and it was a lot of fun. And I think that's one of the beauties of running with a group is you get challenged way more than running by yourself. You can give up on yourself. But whenever you have the accountability, it's unbelievable how much you can push yourself. Your mental strength somehow increases by 100. And that was Thursday. Yeah.
But it's like it's not necessarily like an accountability. It's more of like an embarrassment factor, right? Like, I feel like I wouldn't want to do a run club because I would run the first mile. I think I could do a mile. And then I would probably stop to walk, and everyone would the group would just continue running, and I'm just walking, and they're all walking back to the cars. I'm like, freak, I'm going to have to walk home. I can't show my face here again.
That's a remarkably toxic thing to think.
I would be like, gosh, how am I going to sneak into the woods behind the parking lot so that I can army crawl under my truck, slide into my truck, and wait until everyone leaves and hope they don't notice that I'm missing.
There's multiple problems with this line of thinking. Number one is you think people think about you way too much.
That's probably true. But the hope was that everyone forgets about me, right? Hopefully everyone forgets that I'm here and I can kind of stealthily make my way back to my vehicle and never come back.
You go to a run club. No one's going to remember you unless you want to be remembered. It's that simple. That's the beauty of community. That rhymes, and that was on purpose, is if you don't make an effort to be in community, you will not be in community. People think that just because they show up at something, that their life is going to change and they don't have to do anything and put any effort in, that everyone's going to cater to them. That is the Western way of thinking. It's a wrong way of thinking. However, if you show up to something like a run club and you put in the effort and you grow, if you go up to someone, strike a conversation, that is when community is built. But again, you cannot expect show up. Oh, I didn't meet anybody. I didn't have fun. I showed up. I didn't talk to a single person, and now I'm going to complain about it. You know what I'm saying?
Our pastor was making the same point about people who have been coming to church for like a year, but they don't know anybody. And he was like, well, it's probably because you get to the service 10 minutes late and then you leave during the invitation to go get lunch and you never talk to any, like you sit by yourself and you never talk to anybody. So it was an encouragement for the church to reach out to people that you don't know, that you're sitting around and like, you know, just be in community between services and stuff. But he's like, also some of y'all just like don't hang around and don't want to talk to people. And you just slip in and slip out and you say, oh, I don't have any community. Like that church isn't good with finding community. So he really put him on blast, but I see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I was talking to this young lady and she was saying it was her first time there. And she said, she just walked up to somebody and said, hey, can I talk to you? And I said, this is what it made me think. I said, 10 times out of 10, that person is going to say yes.
Right.
You know, if you are that's how you make the effort. Hey, can I talk to you? That's fantastic. If you're going to go and you want to meet people, don't expect people to just start crawling and running up to you. They have no reason to. That sounds harsh, right? But it's not really. It's just true. You have to make a conscious effort. But the beauty about a run club is no one's going there to really run alone. Because again, it's not, the point of the run club is not to win. Of course, winning is good.
You're like, I love to win.
And it's easy in this club, but it's very community centric. So people are there to meet people. People are there to hang out. And I think it parallels to the church, except for some reason in the Western world, we have become tainted and believe that the church must cater to our preference. And if it doesn't, then it's bad, even if it teaches the gospel. If I sit in my seat for 60 minutes a Sunday and leave, like you were saying, oh yeah, that church is fine. I just can't find community. Well, okay. But that takes me back to Sunday. Is we talked about iron sharpening and how iron, whenever you sharpen iron, friction is created. And you're going to run into friction, but you also trust that it's getting sharper. You're getting sharpened. So it's a balance, right? You got to be better, you have to be in a place that is not afraid to tell you you're failing. And Americans hate the idea of failing, just like we hate the idea of being embarrassed on a run. At the end of the day, if you want to become more like Jesus, if you want to be able to run 2 miles, you're going to run. And you're going to be okay when people tell you, hey, dude, you got to run further. I'm using running as a metaphor here, but
of course,
I think it's still a valid point. Is we should be happy when people call us out, because if we've committed to being more like Jesus, that is an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
That was my week. I'm about to go to the second part of this marriage conference. And you may be wondering, why are you at a marriage conference? Because the marriage conference is specifically for married people. Well, I'm running the production side of it, so that is why I'm there.
Well, look, it's I think even while you're single, you know, I know there was a young lad who we both interacted with in the college ministry, and he was single, and he read every single, Tim Keller, Meaning of Marriage. He was reading every marriage book he could get his hands on, and he didn't have a woman in sight. Nobody
You got
even
to be prepared.
in the orbit. But yeah, everyone was like, this man loves his wife so much. He doesn't even dang know who it is, but it's a great thing. So I think any knowledge and wisdom you can gather now is only going to be helpful down the road. Unless, of course, 100%. You've been blessed with singleness, which, I'm not going to put that out there, but I hope you find somebody great.
Hey, if I was moved to celibacy, it would be a blessing. Just as marriage is a blessing. It just depends on God's calling on your life, right? And at this certain moment, I believe God is moving me toward marriage. But I'm also not going to put bounds and constrictions on God.
Of course.
But it's been a good week, I'll tell you that. But I do look forward to, other than my final thing is, I've gotten this notification. I wear this new watch here. Well, it's not actually, it's the opposite of a watch. It is specifically designed not to tell the time. It's a fitness band called Whoop. And every day I get a notification that says, you are in sleep debt. And I have a complaint with Whoop is, you want me to sleep until 7:30 a.m. every morning. And frankly, that is not sustainable whatsoever. Especially for people that are trying to have a podcast. We don't have time to sleep until 7:30 because we love our listeners so much. And I know you recently got a aura ring, and you were sharing with me that you had negative aura.
I had negative
day
aura.
Or so.
Well, especially last night. I got home at 1:30. Did my post-cigar cleaning routine, got in bed at 2, and then I had that 5:30 alarm so we could record this podcast. So I did have the lowest sleep score that I've ever had, a 59. I think it called me a degenerate, my app. It's like, dude, you were smoking stogies last night till 2 a.m. and then you woke up at 5:30? It's like, this is a horrendous sleep schedule. They're like, surely tomorrow night you're going to get 10 hours of sleep to make up for it. I'm like, no, I'm probably going to sleep like 6 hours tomorrow night. So it knows that I'm stressed, and it knows that I don't sleep enough. And that's really the two things that I found out about myself. So we're working on it. It's a cool little deal. It's just on your ring finger there. But yeah, I think it's starting to figure out that maybe I'm just a different animal. And like you said, waking up at 7:30, no real adult can do that. It's not realistic. It's not an option for people like me and you.
Yeah, I think it depends on the adult and how they structure their calendar. But not every adult has a top 1% podcast in the world.
Right.
And I think to maintain that status, we cannot sleep until 7:30.
Yeah.
But some adults, I believe, are afforded that it starts with an L. Luxury. That's the word. And I celebrate that alongside them. I don't hold it against anybody if you sleep until 7:30. I'm just saying people who want to have a 1% podcast and love their followers, we're going to rock on. We are not going to sleep until 7:30 because each morning we get up and think about you. And that's just a fact. And that's why we've scheduled our time each week to share our lives about you. And that is precisely why we are going to see you in 7 days. And we love you deeply and generously.